Hello, dear friends, and welcome to the Danielle Moodie Show. Today, I've had a lot of a mix of emotions, as today was the opening arguments in the Scrimeti case, which we are going to delve into today. And it had me thinking about a lot of things. It had me thinking about humanity and who gets to decide who can do what with their bodies or who is actually human is decided by 9 unelected black robes. And then it got me thinking about our gender obsession that is happening in this country and this weird gender nouveau revolution that is happening. And so we're going to get into some deep things today. Grab your mocktails and your cocktails. I have my coffee. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Danielle Moodie Show. Welcome to the Danielle Moodie Show. Grab your mocktails and your cocktails. I have my coffee, which I've been drinking all day long because it's been that type of a day. Folks, like I said to you, I'm not going to be using this show to follow all of the ins and outs of what is happening over in Trump's bizarro world. When it affects us genuinely, then I will delve into those conversations. But on this show, I want us to have broader conversations, really ask ourselves some questions that we may not have the answers to at this time, but it's important to ask the questions. And so today, um, the U.S. Supreme Court heard the opening arguments in the U.S. v. Scrimeti case, which is challenging the state's ban, Tennessee's ban, on treatments for trans minors. And this case is going to have a massive ripple effect across the country as it pertains to transgender rights. And, there are lots of folks who will tell you that, well, I don't know a trans person, or this doesn't affect me, or, I'm not concerned. And I will tell you that whenever you hear about a case that is going to decide the future health and well-being and safety of another community that you may not be a part of, you should pay attention. Because like we've been saying, first they come for, right? The Martin Niemöller poem. First they come for the low-hanging fruit, the people that they think that no one cares about, or that they will have common discrimination, right, with. And that is trans people in this country. Because whether you speak with people in the Black community, white folks, working class, Muslims, Christians, what have you, what there seems to be consensus around is transgender identity. And what is confusing to me is that why is it this population that, by the way, is about maybe 1%, 1.3%, it's less than 3%, the transgender community of the entire population of the United States. And yet, if you were paying attention to the last months of Trump's campaign, watching any of his ads that were specifically targeted and playing through football games and other sporting events, you would think that trans people are damn near 60% of the population and everyone is just turning trans. Because the attack level and the focus is astronomical in comparison to their actual numbers. So I want to provide a little bit of insight into this case, why it matters so deeply to me, and what came up as I was reading and kind of putting together today's show is that America is obsessed with gender and gender roles. And trans people, the reason why, folks, before I get into the case, the reason why there is all of this pushback and angst and discrimination and policies and weaponization of bathrooms is because I believe that transgender people pose a threat to conservatives because if gender roles and gender stereotypes no longer apply, then they lose their power. Then all of a sudden we start talking about people as actual people and the roles that we want them to play in our partnerships, in our households, and in our families based on who that person is, not what their identity is. And what this all boils down to, folks, is about power. Power over rather than power with. And if now you have young people coming home and saying that they identify as LGBTQ, largely because for them, for Generation Z and Alpha, presenting as LGBTQ or calling themselves queer is more aligned with their political identity than it is with their gender identity. It's to showcase the fluidity with regard to their thinking and the fact that they recognize that we don't live or have to live and operate inside of a binary. And so, who would we all be if we were not prescribed our roles literally from the womb? The moment, right, that a baby comes out, blue hat or pink hat, now it's blue, pink, and white. You go down any children's toy aisle, you see very clearly, based on the pastels versus the primary colors, who you're supposed to get a gift for. The boy or the girl. And what we have realized over time is that all of this has been prescribed to us, and it all has its foundation in religious doctrinization. So, what does it mean then for people to exist free in their own skin, in their own body, and say that if my, right, gender that was provided to me at birth does not match how I feel and who I am, and I'm saying to you, I'm telling you, this is who I am. Why does anyone get to tell them no? If I say, my name is Danielle, right? Refer to me as such. And then you turn around and tell me, well, you look like a Mary, so I'm going to call you Mary. How does the person that has decided to change my name, how do they have more power to identify me than I do to identify myself? This is basic shit, folks. Like, this is basic things. If I am telling you who I am, who are you to tell me who you think I am? And to me, that's what this case is. That's what this is about. You can run it down whatever legal lines you want to, right? Whether it violates equal protection, whether it violates parental consent, whether this, that, or the other thing. But when you drill down to the fundamentals of what is at stake in this case, it is who gets to dictate their personhood. The person who is telling you, this is how I feel, this is who I am, or the other person living outside of that body that gets to tell you what you can and can't do with that body and how that body will be identified. It doesn't make any sense when it's said very plainly like that. So, in the case, right? The case was brought, the Scrimetti case was brought by 3 trans youth and their parents, right? Last year. And they argued that the law violates the equal protection clause of the 14th Amendment because of sex based discrimination. The decision in the case, which is expected in June, could have sweeping implications for trans youth across the country, according to the Human Rights Campaign. 26 states have passed bans on gender affirming care affecting 39.4% of trans youth in this country. So I want to unpack for a moment why this case is important. And it's very small print, but I want to offer it up to you all, so I will read it. This is about transgender or non-binary youth having access to medically necessary care services and treatments commonly provided to cisgender youth that their doctors have prescribed to them to treat their gender dysphoria and improve their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Not having this care results in devastating consequences for their health and well-being. This life-saving care has been approved by the major medical associations and has been scientifically proven to be safe and effective. So once again, friends, we have politicians playing doctor and telling us that those that actually went to medical school, those who actually have a degree in medicine, and are telling you that the care that is being issued for young trans youth is medically necessary and safe. Who are these politicians to come in and now say these doctors are wrong? So take it again. Roe v. Wade. 9 unelected black robes got to decide that women in this country, people with uteruses in this country, no longer have bodily autonomy. For 50 years, abortion had been the law of the land, had been certified and safe, right? Because abortions are not just used for quote unquote unwanted pregnancies, they are also used as a part of reproductive care, full stop. And we are watching right now as women across the country that are in these red states are dying, are miscarrying, are bleeding out, are being forced to carry non-viable pregnancies, and then listen as those babies gasp for air for hours before they die. When we said, my body, my choice, it does not matter whether you are cisgender or transgender. It matters that you are human and that you should have a say in your own goddamn life. And I woke up today and I said, my God, when will there come a time when humans are not being dictated to about who is human and who is not, who is deserving of dignity and who is not, who should have life-saving treatment and who shouldn't? Why is this something that is up for debate? And frankly, friends, if your life right? If you don't know what it is like to have to wait with bated breath for 9 unelected judges to decide your future, then you are a part of the oppressive class. You are the mainstream. Because my God, folks, from the fucking Constitutional Convention that decided that Black people were only 3/5 of a human, to the Dred Scott decision, to Plessy versus Ferguson, to Brown versus Board, to Roe v. Wade, to now the Scarametti case, it is all the same. It is about the majority getting to dictate to the minority who is deserving and who is not. So all of a sudden, folks, the same conservatives that want to talk to you about parental rights and, oh, your parents should have a right to say who gets to read what book and who gets to be in what curriculum and parents' rights. Well, these parents of transgender youth are saying, we're listening to our kids and our kids want the care. And our doctors say that the care is necessary because guess what? They would rather their child be trans than dead. But politicians are telling you what you should be doing with your child. So conservatives want to have it multiple ways, not just 2 ways. They want to have it multiple ways. It's parents' rights so long as it is about taking other people's rights away and access away. But when it is about granting rights and listening to people and extending kindness and decency, then all of a sudden politicians must intervene on your behalf because now parents don't know any better. This is the shit that is driving me crazy. And frankly, it should be driving all of us crazy. And you should not need to know somebody that is trans to give a damn about what the Supreme Court is doing and will decide with their 6-3 MAGA majority. Because it won't stop with trans folks. What will be next? And so here, I want to read what would be the implications of this case and its decision. There are a range of different outcomes that are foreseeable in a final ruling. A ruling in favor of the families would return the case to the lower courts to apply the appropriate standard of review for improper sex-based classifications. If the court upholds the ban, the Tennessee law would remain in effect, depriving trans minors from receiving hormone therapy, greenlighting similar bans already enacted in other states, 26, and potentially emboldening even more states to pass similarly restrictive laws and perhaps even more draconian bans. However, this case is decided, it is likely to have significant impact on how much deference courts give to bans on medical care to treat gender dysphoria. Folks, then what's next? I'll tell you what comes next. What comes next will be birth control. It'll start with youth. Oh, women, girls under a certain age can't receive birth control, right? Which already happens in some states, I'm sure of it. You need parental consent, . Then they'll say, well, no, now you don't need parental consent. We're saying that no one under the age of, say, 17, 18 will be able to access birth control. Right? Like, you let these things enter. When do they end? It's transgender youth today it's cis youth tomorrow, and then it's all of us. It really is terrifying. And when you look at the numbers, folks, because this is something that is also incredibly important. Transgender youth reported significantly increased rates of depression, suicidal, I'm going to say suicidal thoughts because I can't pronounce suicidality. I don't know. And victimization compared to their cisgender peers. Notably, in the past year, 1 in 3 transgender youth reported attempting suicide. Folks, listen to this. Let me say that again. Notably, in the past year, 1 in 3 transgender youth reported attempting suicide. Almost 1/3 reported being a victim of sexual violence, and more than half reported a 2-week period of depression. So if you look at this chart here, the yellow is cisgender and the pink is transgender. Attempted suicide in the past year. Only 7% of cisgender youth attempted suicide, whereas this chart says 35% of trans youth attempted suicide. And you can go on from there. Folks, how is this okay? Seriously considering suicide in the past year, 16% of cisgender youth, while 44% of trans youth felt sad or hopeless for 2 weeks or more in the past year. 30% of cisgender kids, 53% of trans kids. This should not be acceptable. And so when you hear that this case is happening, and I will tell you that Chase Strangio, who is the lawyer for ACLU, who is also on the team presiding over this case, is the first openly trans person to argue before the Supreme Court and use his own life and the life-saving hormones and therapy and medical intervention that he received that allows him to be standing before the Supreme Court to argue for the ability of trans youth to have a future. Because that is what this is about. We do not know what it is like to exist inside of a body that you feel like is betraying you on a day-to-day basis. To be victimized, to be harassed. Just this week, Model of the Year was given to a trans model. You see folks like Laverne Cox, right? Trans actress. You see people in prominent positions and you want to believe that we are headed in the right direction. But folks, we are not. Those people are the exception, not the rule. After the election, the Trevor Project, where I got this data from, the Trevor Project is an LGBTQ organization that works to decrease suicide and mental health issues that regularly plague the LGBTQ community. They have a hotline. And that hotline, folks, had a 6-hour wait following the election. Because the youth, the queer youth of this country, watched as America voted against them. They are watching as folks like Nancy Mace put into effect bathroom bans for a duly elected member of Congress to embarrass her. Our children are watching. And what we are showing them is that their lives do not matter. I remember, and I participated in the It Gets Better campaign in the early 2000s because there had been a rash of high profile suicides of young queer kids who were being bullied to death and who were going home and they were hanging themselves, they were cutting themselves, and a bunch of queer adult celebrities, advocates, activists started the It Gets Better project to show them that life gets better, that to hang in there. School may be tough, high school may be rough, but like you will make it to the other side. You can get married, you can be successful, you can find love, right? Even if it is not in your home. And now, years later, can we honestly tell them that things get better? When half of this country, half of the states have voted to ensure that they will never receive the care that they need, the interventions that they need to live a full, complete, and abundant life, that half of this country said that they are undeserving of life. Which is why not only are suicide rates high for the trans community, but murder rates as well. It is this obsession with gender and a binary that has us here, rules that were made up in order to control people and to keep them in their place. It is not, right, an accident that at a time when we are talking about and having arguments about and debates about the existence of trans people, that you also are watching this unfold on social media. This return of the traditional wife, now with a hot new handle as the Tradwife, taken over TikTok. You think you're watching a video about a woman baking bread from scratch, like many people did during the pandemic, and then you find out, oh no, there's a whole MAGA fucking white Christian nationalist agenda all under it. So again, at a time when youth are seeing the opportunity to break outside of these binaries, where they are seeing women in positions of power and people in positions of power, right? And people being able to own their personhood. This is what the pushback looks like, folks. It looks like reminding women of their roles, reminding men that your job is to provide and get the bacon and be strong and do this, that. This is what you're seeing. The pushback to inclusive gender identity and acceptance is toxic masculinity and this shit. And so, I bring this to folks' attention because I don't think that people make these connections on a regular basis, right? Between what is happening with the pushback and the weaponization of identity, and then this miraculous creation of the Tradwife and celebration of them. The woman that I just showed you, Hannah Nealman, 8 kids, Mormon, living on a 358-acre farm, the ballerina farm, because she was once in Juilliard, until, she found her husband, whose father, by the way, owns JetBlue. So they're not poor by any stretch of the imagination. And she uses her 9 million, 20, I think it's 22 million people follow her. 22 million people. Some follow her because they like her, some follow her because they hate her. While she tends to her 8 children and bakes bread and milks the cows, showing you, that you don't need to be all concerned and worried about what feminism is. Just tend to your man. And this is what they say. The Tradwives online lives are a pleasant parade of floaty dresses and appealingly rustic recipes, accompanied by voiceover monologues about home, simplicity, God, and of course, husbands who protect and provide and lead the household by example. Are the Tradwives okay? Wonder some onlookers, while others consume video after video, wistful for a quiet life of butter churning. Now, don't get it twisted. I too have fantasies of leaving New York City and going upstate and making fucking jam and living a slower life, right? Where but it is based on the fact that New York is filled with frenetic energy and I don't want to burn out and drop dead, right? Um but there is a difference between a life of quiet and jam and being told that you need to have a football team sized family and that the man is the head of the household and whatever he says goes and all you have to do is push out children and churn butter. There's a big difference between those things. And so I am thankful for Tia Levings, who wrote an incredibly important memoir entitled The Well-Trained Wife. And the harrowing memoir about the trad wife that she says fans need to know. Here's a little insight into it. Levings decided to write A Well-Trained Wife in the late 2010s in response to the politically motivated way extreme Christian views were going mainstream. When she recognized that the members of her fundamentalist Christian community wanted to, quote, to run our country the way they run their homes, she writes, quote, I suddenly realized why it mattered so much that I talk about what it's like in those households. I could tell the public what it's really like. And guess what, folks? It wasn't, like the voiceover monologues of the pretty thin white women, mother of 75, who is milking cows and carrying eggs. No, it was filled with abuse and battery. A well-trained wife effectively establishes how extreme religions so wholly indoctrinate their followers by isolating them early. Born in the mid-1970s and brought up attending a Baptist church in Jacksonville, Florida, Levings was taught to mistrust the outside world with its abundance of information and technology. Cancer, church leaders told her, was a punishment for the sins of humans. The 1986 Challenger space shuttle explosion was the natural consequences of, quote, scientists playing God. The United Nations was already plotting a future one world government that would arrest and torture people left behind in the rapture. folks, what her book laid out, and I had the opportunity to interview her a couple of months ago, was terrifying because she was like, from a young age, from birth, she was taught the roles that women have. When you're young, your father is in charge. Then, when you get older, your husband is in charge. And above all that, the church is in charge. And she talked about the beatings. She talked about the sexual assault. But all of this is being sanitized and filtered through the lens of the tradwife. Telling young women, right? You shouldn't want to go and get that degree. You shouldn't aspire to do anything other than be a mother. What did they say at the Turning Point? One of those conservative conferences, a young woman stood up and said that she was trying to decide whether or not she should follow her dreams of being a surgeon or, being a mother because she doesn't feel like she has the ability to do both. And what did the men tell her? To go hold a baby and then come back. And if that doesn't move you, then by all means, go be a surgeon. So how does this tie into the fight for trans rights? Because all of this fundamentally, dear friends, is about control and creating a society where freedom of thought, freedom of body doesn't exist, where you are dictated to and your life is not your own. And what that sounds like to me is another form of slavery. Because if I don't have the ability to have self-determination, then what am I? Self-determination is the basis of being human. The ability to decide who, when, where, and how you live. And if we are telling women now, we're taking that power away from you. We're telling people, young people, no, you don't get to tell us who you are and how to treat you. We're telling you who you are and how we're going to treat you. How do we call ourselves and continue to even muse on this idea that we live inside of a free democracy that has freedom of expression and thought, and that we have the ability to pursue our own happiness? Those are what is given to us inside of the Constitution. And what this MAGA Supreme Court is doing is taking away our rights one decision at a time, redefining who we get to be and how we get to show up. So, folks, again, you do not need to know somebody that is trans in order to stand for trans rights. Because at the end of the day, it is about our right to be human, to exist on our own terms, to have self-determination, to have the ability to pursue our happiness, to live full, free, and abundant lives. That's what these cases are about. And no one should have the ability to decide that other than you. So when we decide to divide ourselves off, right, into cis over here and trans over here, Black over there and Latino over there, Muslim over here and Christian over here, able-bodied over here and disability over here. We fracture ourselves from our humanity. And then we trick ourselves into believing that, oh, since they didn't call out my group this time, I'm safe. Your number is coming. Trust and believe. So do not sit idly and quietly by, hoping and praying that your number isn't called. Make your voices heard. Make them loud and determined, regardless of whether or not you that day are on the chopping block, because your day and your number will come. So, folks, for me today, and special announcement. I will not be going live tomorrow, but I will be live again on Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern with Wajahat Ali. Like I said to all of you, I'm doing my doctor's appointments ahead of Donald Trump's transition into power and where I could possibly lose my health care. And so I am taking the time to take care of myself. Um, so I will not be live tomorrow, but um, so I want to do my call to action today. And for those of you that are new, um, Thursdays are normally my damn call to action to damnation. And so today simply is this: we need to fight for each other. We need to fight for everyone's right to exist, free from oppression, free from discrimination. Right now, trans people, the trans community is under attack. There have been hundreds of policies that have been introduced to ban them from existence. Sure, it starts with bathrooms, and then it's sports, and then it's workplaces, and then it's movie theaters, and then it's stay home, then it's they're dangerous. We cannot let this happen. So I implore all of you, if you have resources, think about donating to places like the Trevor Project. Think about donating to places like the ACLU, who are literally fighting for our civil liberties. Think about donating to places like the Transgender Law Center, to Family Equality. These are organizations who work tirelessly to make sure that LGBTQ folks live in a country free from discrimination and are safe and able to live their lives. Think about joining a group as an ally. Because we need more like-minded people that are willing to stand up for all people. I will say this when it is Muslims that are being attacked. I will say it, and I said it when it was Haitian immigrants that are being attacked, right? When it is women and people with uteruses under attack. We have power in our voice and our collective action. You can contact your representatives to make sure that they haven't signed on to these bullshit bathroom bills that Nancy Mace and Mike Johnson are pushing in the House. You can call up these senators and your representatives and ask them, where do you stand on transgender rights and the rights of humanity? These are your representatives. They answer to you. So my call to action is to recognize that all of us are connected. We are all connected because we are all human. And regardless of how we live, how we look, whom we love, we all want fundamentally the same things: to be healthy, to be safe, to be happy. How we go about those different ways, so long as it doesn't hurt or harm other people, as Tim Walz said, is none of our goddamn business. Freedom is our business. And not freedom to, but freedom with. That is it for me today, dear friends, on the Danielle Moodie Show. I appreciate each and every single one of you so very much. Thank you to those who offered up donations today, and super thanks and likes. I appreciate every single dollar that comes in to help support independent media and allow me to continue to do the work that I'm doing and to expand this channel and build it out in a way that I think that we all deserve. The content that matters, right? That is unvarnished in its truth. And so I thank you, thank you for your generosity and your support. And again, I will say, dear friends, that if you like this show, then please do like and comment and subscribe. The algorithms love it, and it is needed, so that I can show up on people's For You pages, and increase our numbers. And so I thank you again. Please continue to share, to like, to comment, to subscribe. And if you do see fit, to continue to support independent media with your generous donations, I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you to our fabulous moderators, who always do such a great job of holding down the chat. And I just, again, folks, I thank you so much. So a reminder, I will not be live tomorrow, but I will be back live 12 p.m. Eastern on Friday with Wajahat Ali for Democracy-ish. And y'all, I got some exciting news coming in the new year that I'm super excited to share soon. More content, more discussion, more fabulousness. So stay tuned and bring a friend. As always, dear friends, power to the people and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane. And in these extraordinarily dangerous times, dear friends, please stay safe. See you back here Friday. Be well.